Cairo was always alive with noise, movement, and endless voices. Streets were filled with sellers calling out their goods, children running through narrow alleys, and tourists wandering with wide eyes. Yet hidden behind the sound and color of the modern city, secrets of the past still slept. Beneath the ground, beneath the stones laid by countless generations, there were forgotten places waiting to be found. One of them was about to reveal itself. Nabil was a young archaeologist who spent most of his time studying old maps and broken pieces of pottery. He was quiet, thoughtful, and different from the other students who often laughed at his obsession with lost ruins. For Nabil, the past was not dead. It was alive, breathing under the earth. And if someone listened carefully enough, the past would whisper its stories. One afternoon, as the sun burned hot over Cairo, Nabil walked through an older part of the city where narrow lanes twisted like a maze. He liked to explore these forgotten corners where crumbling walls carried faded carvings and old stones told silent tales. While passing a deserted alley, his foot struck something unusual. He bent down and brushed away dust and sand. What he saw made his heart jump. It was a pattern carved into the stone floor, almost hidden by centuries of dirt. The lines curved in shapes that did not belong to ordinary Egyptian art. They looked strange, more like stars connected in patterns than hieroglyphs. Nabil leaned closer, tracing the design with his finger. The stone felt warm, as though the sun had heated it, yet no sunlight touched that spot. As he studied the carving, a tremor shook the ground. Cairo often felt the earth move slightly, but this time the vibration was stronger. A crack spread across the stone floor. Nabil stumbled back, watching in shock as pieces of stone shifted and broke away. Beneath the crack he saw a dark gap. The air that rose from it was not dusty and dry, but strangely heavy, almost humming as it touched his face. Excitement and fear battled inside him. He looked around quickly. The alley was empty. No one had noticed the trembling ground or the secret opening. His mind raced with questions. Was this a tomb never recorded? Could it be an unknown chamber of ancient times? Or was it something far greater, something not even connected to human history? He pulled out his notebook and made rough sketches of the design and the crack. Then he carefully pressed on the broken stone. A part of the floor collapsed further, revealing the top of what looked like a staircase leading downward. Nabil's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary hole in the ground. This was an entrance, but entering alone would be foolish. He needed someone he could trust. Without wasting time, he hurried through the twisting lanes until he reached a small apartment where his friend Mariam lived. Mariam was not an archaeologist like him, but she had always been interested in his stories. She was brave, clever, and often teased him for chasing shadows, yet she never doubted his heart. When Nabil told her what he had found, Mariam laughed at first, thinking it was another of his strange discoveries. But when she saw the excitement in his eyes, she grew serious. He described the carvings, the strange warmth, and the hidden stairway. Mariam listened carefully, then finally nodded. "If what you say is true," she said, "then you have found something important. But if others discover it before you, they will close it or worse, claim it for themselves. You should not go alone. I will come with you." That evening, as the city's noise softened into the hum of night, Nabil and Mariam returned to the alley. They carried small lanterns, ropes, and tools. The air was cooler, and shadows stretched long across the ground. Nabil's heart beat quickly as they stepped into the narrow lane. The broken stones were still there, the crack wider now, waiting like an open mouth. They lowered their lanterns into the gap. The faint light revealed the first steps of the staircase, covered in dust but shaped with precise edges. The stones were not rough like old ruins, but smooth, as if cut by tools far beyond simple hammers and chisels. Mariam whispered, "This does not look like any tomb I know." Nabil nodded, unable to speak for a moment. His mind was alive with thoughts, questions, and dreams. The warmth from the stone rose again, stronger this time, carrying a faint scent like burned metal. It felt unnatural yet strangely inviting, as if the earth itself was calling them inside. They exchanged a glance. Both understood the risk. To step down those stairs was to step away from safety and into mystery. But for Nabil, this was what he had always searched for. He tightened his grip on the lantern, took a deep breath, and placed one foot on the first step. The stone beneath his shoe vibrated softly, almost like a heartbeat. Mariam followed close behind, her lantern glowing in the dark. Together they began to descend, leaving behind the modern city above and moving into a silence that had waited for thousands of years. Neither of them knew what awaited in the depths, but they could feel it. Something ancient and powerful was hidden under Cairo's streets, something that was about to change their lives forever. The staircase beneath Cairo stretched downward like a path carved into the heart of the earth. Each step echoed as Nabil and Mariam moved deeper, their lanterns casting circles of light that danced on the smooth walls. The silence around them was heavy. It was not the silence of empty air, but something older, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the visitors who had finally come. The steps were wide and carefully cut, not rough like ordinary ruins. Their edges were sharp, untouched by time. Nabil brushed his hand along the wall as he walked. The surface felt polished, almost like glass. Strange symbols ran along the sides of the staircase, glowing faintly in the lantern light. They were not the familiar shapes of hieroglyphs, but flowing curves and lines that looked more like constellations than letters. Mariam slowed her pace. "This is not human work," she whispered, her voice trembling. Nabil nodded. His heart was racing, yet his curiosity pushed him forward. "It feels alive," he said, "as if it has been waiting." After many steps, the staircase opened into a chamber. The ceiling arched high above their heads, though no torch or fire lit the space. Instead, pale crystals grew out of the walls, shining softly with a steady light. The glow was not harsh like electric lamps, but calm, filling the chamber with an almost dreamlike atmosphere. Mariam raised her lantern higher even though it was not needed anymore. Her eyes widened as she saw the carvings on the walls. Rows of figures were etched in silver lines. They were tall, slender beings with elongated arms, standing beside shapes that looked like pyramids, circles, and stars. Nabil stood frozen. He had studied the tombs of pharaohs, the temples of old kingdoms, and even the faded scripts of forgotten dynasties. But nothing compared to this. The art here was not Egyptian. It was not even from any known culture. It felt like it belonged to another world. At the center of the chamber stood a massive stone door. It was shaped like a triangle pointing upward, its surface black and smooth as if carved from a single block of unknown rock. The door had no handle, no lock, only more strange symbols glowing faintly on its surface. The air around it hummed softly, carrying a vibration that made their skin prickle. Mariam stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the glowing lines. "Do you feel that?" she asked. "Yes," Nabil answered quietly. "It is not only stone. It is something more. A machine, maybe." He reached into his pocket and took out his small notebook. Quickly, he began sketching the symbols, though he knew he could never capture the way they shimmered with hidden life. Mariam walked slowly around the chamber, her lantern light brushing over carvings of stars arranged in patterns. Suddenly, Nabil felt a pull in his chest, as though the door itself was calling him. His hand rose without thought and touched the center of the black stone. At once, the symbols flared brighter. The hum deepened and the entire chamber vibrated gently. Mariam gasped and ran to his side. "Nabil, what did you do?" she cried. "I only touched it," he said, his voice shaking. It reacted. The triangular door shifted silently, sliding open without any sound of grinding stone. Beyond it stretched a passage filled with more glowing crystals. A rush of warm air flowed out, carrying a strange metallic scent. Mariam grabbed his arm. "Should we go further? This is beyond us. We don't know what we are walking into." Nabil looked at her, fear and wonder mixing in his eyes. "If we stop now, we may never know the truth. Someone else might find it later, and they might not respect what it is. We must see for ourselves." Her hesitation lasted only a moment before she nodded. Together, they stepped through the door into the unknown corridor. The passage was narrower than the chamber, but the walls gleamed as though they were polished from inside. More symbols lined the sides, and some even shifted slowly, rearranging themselves as if alive. Nabil reached out but quickly pulled back his hand. The moving symbols felt like they were watching him. As they walked, they heard faint sounds. Not the sound of footsteps, but something like distant whispers or soft tones of music. The sounds did not come from behind or ahead, but seemed to echo from the very stones around them. Mariam tightened her grip on the lantern. "It is as if the walls are speaking." "Maybe they are," Nabil answered, his voice low. "Maybe this whole place was built to guide us." After some time, the passage opened again, revealing another vast hall. This one was even larger than the first chamber. High above, the ceiling disappeared into shadow, though crystals still glowed along the walls. In the center of the hall stood something that made both of them stop in awe. It was a pyramid, but not like the ones above ground. This pyramid was smaller, only as tall as a house, but it shone with a deep black surface that reflected the light in strange patterns. Lines of silver energy pulsed across its sides, forming shapes that looked like both writing and flowing rivers of light. The pyramid hummed gently, the same sound they had felt at the door, but stronger now, almost like the beat of a giant heart. The floor around it was perfectly smooth, marked with rings that glowed faintly, as though the pyramid stood at the center of a great design. Miriam's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her eyes reflected the silver lines running across the pyramid. Nabil took a slow step forward, his notebook forgotten in his hand. Every part of him felt drawn toward the structure. It was not only a monument. It was something alive, something waiting to be awakened. They had come seeking the past, but what they had found was far beyond history. The hidden pyramid beneath the streets of Cairo was not a tomb of kings. It was a secret that had slept for ages, waiting for the day when human hands would uncover it once more. The underground hall stretched wide and silent, holding the strange black pyramid at its center. Nabil and Miriam stood still at the edge, their lanterns glowing softly, though they were no longer needed. The crystals on the walls gave enough light, but the pyramid itself seemed to glow faintly from within, as if it carried its own life. Nabil felt his heart beat faster. He had dreamed all his life of finding something no one else had seen, but this was beyond his imagination. Every detail of the structure seemed impossible. The smooth black stone had no cracks, no marks of tools, no sign of age. Silver lines ran across it like flowing rivers, moving gently as if the pyramid was breathing. Miriam held his arm tightly. She did not speak at first, only stared. At last she whispered, "This is not built by human hands. No pharaoh, no dynasty, no kingdom could shape stone like this." Nabil nodded slowly. His voice shook when he replied, "It feels like it belongs to the stars." They stepped closer. Each footstep echoed softly, carried by the smooth floor. The glowing rings around the pyramid seemed to respond to their movement. The rings brightened slightly as if recognizing them. Miriam stopped, her eyes wide with caution. "Do you see that?" she asked. "Yes," Nabil said. His voice was filled with both fear and wonder. "It knows we are here." They circled the pyramid, moving carefully. On each side, the silver lines formed different patterns. On one face, the lines shaped something that looked like a map of stars. On another side, they formed symbols that seemed to shift slowly, almost like they were alive. The third face showed what looked like tall beings with shining heads standing beside humans. The final side was blank, smooth, and silent, as if waiting for something. Miriam placed her lantern down and touched the map-like side. The surface was not cold as stone should be. It was warm, almost pulsing with gentle life. A faint vibration ran up her arm. She pulled her hand back quickly, her breath sharp. "It responds," she said, her voice unsteady. "It feels alive." Nabil knelt near the symbols, pulling out his notebook again. He sketched as fast as he could, though the lines kept changing. Each time he looked up, the symbols seemed to move, never staying in one form for long. His pencil raced, yet he knew he could not truly capture them. The humming grew stronger. The air carried a soft tone, like music played on invisible strings. It was not loud, but it filled the hall with a sense of presence. Miriam whispered, "Do you hear it? The pyramid is singing." Nabil raised his head, his eyes shining with excitement. "Yes, it is calling to us." As they stood near the pyramid, the floor beneath their feet glowed brighter. The rings of light widened, spreading outward like ripples in water. The crystals on the walls responded too, their glow deepening as if the whole chamber was awakening. Suddenly, the blank side of the pyramid shimmered. Slowly, shapes began to form on its surface. First, it showed the outline of a human figure. Then the figure grew clearer, with arms, legs, and a head. The shape was tall, much taller than either of them, and seemed made of light and shadow together. Miriam stepped back, clutching Nabil's arm. "It is forming something. What if it is alive inside?" Nabil could not answer. His throat was dry, his eyes fixed on the shifting surface. The glowing figure pulsed once, then faded back into the stone. The humming calmed, but the hall felt charged, as if waiting for a decision. Silence returned, though it was not the same silence as before. It was heavier, filled with expectation. Nabil finally spoke, his voice steady though his heart was racing. This pyramid is not a tomb. It is something far greater. Maybe a message, maybe a machine. But it is waiting for us to do something. Miriam nodded, her eyes still wide. We must be careful. If it is alive, or if it belongs to another world, it may not be safe. Yet despite her warning, she could not hide the spark of wonder in her face. The sight of the glowing pyramid filled her with awe she could not deny. They decided to explore the hall more closely before touching the pyramid again. Around the edges of the chamber they found smaller stone platforms covered with strange objects. Some looked like tablets, though they were not made of clay or stone. Their surfaces shimmered like frozen water. Others looked like tools, sharp and shining, though they carried no rust or dust. Nabil picked one tablet up carefully. It was thin and light, glowing softly when his fingers brushed across it. Symbols rose on its surface, forming patterns like the ones on the pyramid. He could not read them, but they felt like words. This is knowledge, he whispered. This whole place is a library hidden beneath our city. Miriam touched another object, something shaped like a ring with tiny markings across its surface. When she lifted it, the markings glowed faintly. She quickly set it back down, afraid of activating something they could not control. They returned to the center, to the black pyramid that continued to hum with soft energy. Nabil stood before it, staring up at the blank side that had shown the glowing figure. He felt as if the pyramid was waiting for his choice. We are standing in a place not meant for ordinary eyes, he said. Yet it is here under Cairo, hidden until today. It must have a purpose. Miriam looked at him with quiet fear. Then we must decide if we are ready for it. The crystals dimmed slightly, as if listening to their words. The pyramid remained silent, but the rings of light at its base glowed again, circling outward. In that moment, Nabil and Miriam understood something. The hidden pyramid was not just a secret of the past. It was a gate, a key, and a test. Humanity was being offered a choice, and they were the first to face it. The black pyramid stood silent for a long moment. Nabil and Miriam remained at its base, waiting for a sign. The hall around them glowed softly, as if holding its breath. Then, without warning, the silver lines on the pyramid brightened. They pulsed in rhythm, faster and faster, like the beat of a living heart. The humming sound deepened until the very floor shook beneath their feet. Miriam grabbed Nabil's hand, her eyes wide with fear. It is waking up, she whispered. The blank side of the pyramid rippled again, just as it had before. This time the glowing figure did not fade away. It grew clearer, stepping out of the stone as though the surface was water. Nabil and Miriam gasped. Before them stood a tall being unlike anything they had ever imagined. The figure was made of both flesh and metal, its skin shining like polished bronze yet moving with grace. Its eyes glowed softly like clear glass filled with light. Around its head shimmered a faint aura, as if the air itself bent in its presence. Though tall and powerful, the figure did not appear threatening. Instead, it carried a calm strength that filled the hall. When it spoke, its lips did not move. The voice came from everywhere, deep and steady, echoing across the chamber. I am Cairo, guardian of knowledge, keeper of this place, the voice declared. You have awakened what has slept for many ages. Miriam stepped back, clutching her lantern, though its light was weak compared to the glow around Cairo. What are you? She asked, her voice trembling. Cairo turned its glowing eyes toward her. I am not of your kind, but I have watched your people grow. Long before your kingdoms rose, my kind walked among the stars. We placed this pyramid here as a seed of wisdom, hidden until the right time. Only those who dared to seek would find it. Nabil felt his knees weaken, yet his spirit was alive with excitement. Why us, he asked. Why here, beneath Cairo? Cairo's voice carried both patience and power. Because this land has always been a meeting point of worlds. Civilizations have risen here, sharing rivers, stone, and sky. Humanity was guided, watched, and tested. The time has come again. You have stepped into this place not with armies, but with courage and curiosity. That is why you were chosen. The silver lines on the pyramid shifted, showing images in glowing light. Stars appeared, swirling galaxies, and great ships moving through the void. Strange beings stood beside humans, teaching them tools, fire, and words. Then the images changed, showing wars, greed, and destruction. The glow dimmed, as if filled with sorrow. Cairo spoke again. We gave your kind sparks of knowledge in ages past. Some used it with wisdom, but many fell to pride. That is why this pyramid was hidden, sealed until the world reached a time when it could choose again. Miriam's voice shook as she asked, "And what choice do we have now?" The Guardian's eyes brightened. To walk the stars or to remain bound to the earth? Within this pyramid lies knowledge of travel beyond your world. But such power is dangerous. If you seek only gain, it will destroy you. If you seek unity, it will raise you higher. Nabil felt the weight of the words settle on him like stone. He looked at Miriam, who stood with both fear and wonder in her face. They had come searching for the past, but they had uncovered the future. "Why trust us?" Nabil asked softly. "We are only two people." Kyle's form shimmered slightly as if considering. "Every great step begins with a few. The knowledge must be carried by hearts that understand its weight. You were the first to find this place, and so the choice begins with you. But remember, what you decide will shape not only your lives, but the path of all humanity." The hall fell silent again. Only the humming of the pyramid filled the air, steady and unbroken. Miriam finally spoke, her voice steady now. "If we say no, what happens?" The Guardian lowered its head slightly. "The pyramid will sleep again, hidden until another age. Humanity will rise or fall on its own. The chance will pass." Nabil felt torn between fear and hope. 1,000 questions crowded his mind. Could humans truly handle the knowledge of the stars? Would nations fight over it? Or could it unite them at last? Before he could answer, the floor shook again. A faint rumble echoed through the corridor they had entered. Kale's glowing eyes turned sharply toward the sound. "You are not alone here," the Guardian said. Miriam gasped. "Someone followed us?" Kale raised a hand, and the silver lines on the wall shifted into new patterns, forming images of several dark figures moving slowly down the passage. They were men carrying equipment, their eyes filled with greed rather than wonder. "They seek power, not wisdom," Kale said firmly. "Their kind has come before."
"They will come again."
"That is why your choice matters." Nabil and Miriam looked at each other, fear flashing in their eyes. They had uncovered something extraordinary, but they were no longer its only witnesses. Others were coming, and they would not treat the pyramid as a gift. To them, it would be a weapon. Kale stepped closer, the glow of its form filling the space between them. "Now you must decide. Do you accept the burden of this knowledge, or do you let it vanish again? The future of your people rests in the hands of those who are brave enough to carry it." Nabil's heart thundered in his chest. The hall seemed to grow larger, the pyramid brighter, the weight of choice pressing harder. He felt the pull of history, of destiny calling him to answer. Miriam's hand found his, and together they stood before the Guardian, caught between fear of the unknown and the promise of the stars. The hall glowed with the soft light of the crystals, and the black pyramid pulsed gently as if waiting for an answer. Nabil and Miriam stood side by side, their hearts heavy with the weight of Kale's words. The Guardian's tall form shimmered, patient but watchful, while the sound of footsteps echoed faintly from the distant passage. Others were coming, and time was running short. Nabil's voice trembled when he finally spoke. "You ask us to carry the knowledge of the stars. But how can two people do this? We are only ordinary humans." Kale's glowing eyes fixed on him, calm and steady. "Every great change begins with ordinary hands. You found this place not through force, but through courage and curiosity. That is why the pyramid responds to you. It does not measure wealth or power. It measures the heart." Miriam listened in silence, but her thoughts were heavy. She imagined governments, armies, and greedy men fighting over what lay here. She imagined the pyramid becoming a weapon, tearing humanity apart. Yet she also imagined the stars opening above them, new worlds waiting and humanity stepping into a greater age. She looked at Nabil. His eyes were filled with hope, but also with fear. He wanted to believe, yet he carried doubts. Miriam understood, for she carried the same. Before they could speak further, the distant footsteps grew louder. The intruders were getting closer. The sound of their tools striking stone echoed through the corridor. Kale raised a hand, and the silver lines on the wall shifted, showing moving images. Several men with lanterns and ropes were making their way down. Their eyes glowed not with wonder, but with hunger. "They seek only power," Kale said. "If they reach this hall, they will try to claim what is not theirs. This place will not answer to them, but their greed will bring destruction. The choice is yours. Do you stand as guardians of this knowledge, or do you let it sleep once more?" Nabil clenched his fists. "If we accept, what must we do?" The Guardian's voice grew deeper. "You will carry the knowledge hidden here. The pyramid will open its library to you, but you must guide humanity with patience. Share it carefully, not as a weapon, but as a light. It will be a burden. Many will doubt you, some will resist you, but if your hearts remain true, humanity will rise. Miriam's eyes narrowed. And if we refuse? Then the pyramid will vanish, Cale replied. It will return to silence, waiting for another age. Humanity will walk its path alone, without guidance. Perhaps it will reach the stars one day, or perhaps it will fall by its own hand. The chance will be gone. The words hung heavy in the chamber. The hum of the pyramid grew softer, as if urging them to decide. Nabil turned to Miriam. We cannot walk away. This is greater than us. If we refuse, it will be as if we buried the future. Miriam bit her lip, torn between fear and hope. But what if we are not strong enough? What if this knowledge brings more harm than good? Nabil took her hand gently. Then we must be stronger. If not us, then who? The ones coming down that passage? They will not use this for good. We must try, Miriam. Even if it is difficult, we must try. For a long moment, Miriam stood silent, her lantern flickering in her trembling hand. Then she took a deep breath and nodded. We accept. Kyle's form brightened, the light spreading across the hall. The pyramid pulsed with energy, and the silver lines on its surface flowed like rivers of light. The floor glowed beneath their feet, forming circles that surrounded them. Then the choice is made, Kyle declared. You are now bearers of the first key. The pyramid's blank side shimmered again, opening like a doorway. Beyond it stretched a vast chamber filled with rows of glowing tablets and floating crystals. Each one pulsed with hidden knowledge like a library of the stars. The sight made Nabil and Miriam gasp. Cale gestured toward it. This is the memory of my people, the knowledge of countless worlds. It is now entrusted to you. Use it with wisdom. Before they could step forward, the sound of shouting echoed from the corridor. The intruders had reached the first chamber. Their voices carried greed and triumph, believing they had found treasure. Nabil and Miriam exchanged worried looks. Cale raised a hand and the wall shifted. Part of the passage sealed itself with stone, blocking the intruders for the moment. They will not be kept away forever, Kyle warned. You must be ready to defend this gift, for there will always be those who seek only power. Nabil and Miriam stepped into the glowing library. The air shimmered, filled with a soft hum. Symbols rose from the tablets as they approached, forming shapes of ships, stars, and strange machines. They felt as though knowledge was flowing into them, whispering of journeys beyond the earth. Miriam's eyes widened with awe. This is more than we can carry. Cale's voice followed them. The pyramid will guide you. You will not hold everything at once. It will reveal only what you are ready to bear. Nabil touched one of the floating crystals. Images flooded his mind. Vast ships sailing through the stars, humans standing beside beings of light, worlds with skies of different colors. His knees nearly buckled, but Miriam steadied him. Together they stood in the heart of the library, knowing they had stepped into a destiny far greater than themselves. The choice was made, and there was no turning back. Behind them, the pyramid pulsed brighter, as if sealing the promise. Beyond the walls, the intruders still clawed their way forward. But Nabil and Miriam no longer felt powerless. They had been entrusted with something ancient and vast, something that could guide all of humanity. The hidden pyramid was no longer just a secret buried beneath Cairo. It was now a living bond between the stars and humankind, and they were its chosen guardians. The hidden library glowed around Nabil and Miriam, its walls alive with moving lights. The floating crystals shifted slowly like stars drifting in a silent sky. The two explorers stood in awe, but the sense of peace did not last. Beyond the sealed passage, the echo of angry voices grew louder. The intruders had not given up. They struck the walls with metal tools, their shouts carrying greed and impatience. Nabil's jaw tightened as the sound reached the chamber. They are breaking through. Kyle, how much longer can the wall hold them back? Kale's tall, glowing figure appeared at the center of the hall. His voice was calm, but his words were grave. Not long. The barrier is strong, but their persistence will weaken it. Once they break through, they will attempt to take what is not theirs. Miriam's heart pounded. She looked at the glowing tablets around them, each one carrying knowledge far beyond human understanding. If the intruders reached this place, the world could fall into chaos. She turned to Cale. We cannot let them take this. But how can we stop them? We have no weapons, no power. Cale raised his hand, and the floor beneath them lit up with symbols. The pyramid is not a weapon. It was never built to harm, but it will protect its guardians. Through you, it can act. If your hearts remain steady, its strength will answer. Nabil stepped closer to Miriam. We must stand firm. This is our duty now. Miriam nodded, though fear still weighed on her chest. She knew Cairo was right. The pyramid had chosen them, and with that choice came responsibility. The wall shook as a loud crash echoed. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The intruders had broken through part of the passage. Soon they would enter the library. Cale's voice deepened, carrying an unshakable power. Go to the heart of the chamber. Place your hands upon the central stone. Let the pyramid feel your resolve. Nabil and Miriam hurried to the center where a tall black stone stood, glowing faintly with silver veins. They placed their hands on its cool surface. At once, light surged up their arms, filling their minds with visions. They saw the earth from above, glowing blue against the darkness of space. They saw endless stars waiting like open doors. The pyramid whispered in their thoughts, asking only one thing: courage. The ground trembled as the intruders burst into the outer hall. Their lanterns flickered wildly as they shouted with excitement. Soon they reached the threshold of the library, their greedy eyes widening at the sight of the glowing crystals. One of them raised his hand, pointing toward the treasures. There, take it all. But as they rushed forward, the air shimmered. A barrier of light rose across the entrance, blocking their way. The men struck it with tools, but the barrier did not break. Instead, the energy pulsed outward, forcing them back. Nabil and Miriam felt the power flowing through them, though it was heavy, almost overwhelming. Miriam gasped. It feels alive. It is using our strength, Kyle nodded. The pyramid is not only stone. It is memory, spirit, and will. It defends because you have chosen to protect, not to conquer. The intruders, however, did not stop. They shouted angrily, trying to find another way inside. One of them hurled a burning torch at the barrier, and it flared brightly but held strong. Another tried to climb along the side of the wall, searching for cracks, but the light spread wider, forming a dome around the library. For a moment, the chamber grew quiet except for the humming of the pyramid. Nabil and Miriam stood together, their hands still pressed against the central stone. The light from the dome reflected in their eyes. Then Cale spoke again. You have touched the first power of guardianship. But know this, your duty will not end here. The world above will soon notice the signs. Others will come. Not only these men, but those with greater resources and stronger ambition. The true test is not this battle. It is the days to come. Miriam swallowed hard. She could already imagine government officials, soldiers, and treasure hunters arriving in waves once word spread of what was beneath Cairo. Could two people stand against all of them? Nabil's voice was steady. We will not give up. If the pyramid trusts us, then we must trust it in return. Kyle's form flickered slightly as though he were growing fainter. Then remember this. Knowledge is both a gift and a burden. Do not let fear guide you. Do not let pride blind you. Walk the narrow path and humanity will follow. Suddenly, the chamber shook again. The intruders had gathered explosives from their packs, and with a deafening roar, they tried to break the barrier. The explosion filled the corridor with smoke and fire, but when the dust cleared, the dome of light still stood unbroken. The men stared in disbelief, their faces pale with fear. Some dropped their tools and fled, their courage shattered. Others remained, but their eyes were full of doubt. One of them whispered, "This place is cursed." The pyramid responded with a deep hum, the crystals glowing brighter. The remaining intruders stumbled back, overwhelmed by the force pressing against them. At last they too fled, leaving the passage empty. Silence returned to the chamber, broken only by the soft humming of the crystals. The dome of light slowly faded, leaving the library open once more. Nabil lowered his hands from the stone, his arms trembling. Miriam did the same, her breath uneven. They were exhausted, but relief filled their hearts. Cale looked at them, his glowing form dim but steady. You have taken your first step as guardians. The pyramid stands with you, but remember this was only the beginning. The greatest threat has not yet arrived. The world above will soon awaken to the truth hidden beneath its streets. When that day comes, your courage will be tested more than ever before. Miriam glanced at Nabil, her face pale but resolute. Then we will be ready. Whatever comes, we will not abandon this duty. Nabil placed his hand over hers, nodding firmly. Together we will protect it. The crystals pulsed warmly, as if in approval. The hidden pyramid slept once more, but now it was guarded not only by ancient memory, but by two human hearts ready to face whatever threat the future would bring. The silence inside the hidden pyramid felt heavier after the intruders had fled. Nabil and Mariam stood close to the central stone, their bodies still trembling from the effort of holding the barrier. The crystals around them glowed gently, as if whispering comfort after the storm. Kyle's tall figure shone dimly at the far end of the chamber. His form flickered like a candle struggling against wind. Mariam noticed it and her heart sank. "Kale, what is happening to you?" The guardian's voice was calm, though softer than before. "My time here grows short. With your choice, my task nears its end. The pyramid no longer needs me as its voice. It has chosen you." Nabil frowned. "You mean you are leaving?" Kale nodded slowly. "I am a memory-given form, a guide for the moment of awakening. Now that the guardians are chosen, my strength will return to the stars. But do not fear. The pyramid itself will continue to guide you. Its wisdom flows through the library, waiting for your questions." Mariam stepped closer, her eyes shining with emotion. "You showed us the truth, Kale. Without you, we would have been lost. How can we carry such a great burden alone?" The guardian's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "You are not alone. The pyramid responds to the unity of hearts. As long as you walk together, its strength will not fail you. And when you step into the world above, you will find others willing to stand beside you." The words filled Mariam with a fragile hope. She looked at Nabil, and his steady gaze gave her courage. The chamber shifted then, as if sensing the guardian's farewell. The walls rippled with light, forming images. Nabil and Mariam turned to watch. They saw visions of the distant past, giant ships descending from the skies, shining figures walking among ancient peoples, and pyramids rising not only from stone but from knowledge. They saw the stars guiding caravans across deserts, and they understood that this wisdom had always been near, waiting to be rediscovered. Nabil whispered, "So this has always been here beneath our feet, while the city above carried on its life." Kale's voice deepened. "Yes, humanity was not ready before. It had to grow through struggle, through mistakes, through victories and losses. Now it stands at the edge of a new dawn. But whether it rises or falls depends not on this pyramid, but on the hearts of those who lead." Mariam's chest tightened with the weight of his words. She thought of the greed of the intruders, of the hunger for power in the world above. She also thought of the hope in Nabil's eyes, and the dreams she carried since childhood when she looked at the stars. Kale lifted his hand, and the central stone pulsed with light. A small crystal rose from its surface, glowing with a pure white light. It floated gently toward Nabil and Mariam. "This is the seed of memory," Kyle explained. "It carries a part of the library's knowledge. Guard it well. With it, you may open doors even beyond this chamber. But be wise. Do not reveal it until the time is right." Nabil reached out and caught the crystal in his palm. Its glow warmed his skin, and for a moment he felt as if the stars themselves rested in his hand. He closed his fingers around it, his heart steady. "We will guard it!" The chamber grew brighter. Kale's form began to dissolve into streams of light, rising toward the ceiling. His voice echoed, strong and clear for the last time. "Guardians of humanity, remember this truth. The stars do not belong to the few. They belong to all. Walk with humility, walk with courage, and the path will open." Mariam felt tears in her eyes as Kale's form vanished completely, leaving only the gentle glow of the crystals. The hall fell silent, but it was no longer an empty silence. It was full of meaning, full of promise. For a while, Nabil and Mariam stood together in the quiet, their hands still touching the crystal. Then Nabil turned to her. "We cannot stay here forever. The city above is waiting, and soon others will return, perhaps in greater numbers." Mariam nodded. "Yes, but we are not the same as when we entered. We are guardians now. Whatever comes, we must face it with strength." They walked back through the glowing library, past the rows of floating tablets and crystals. The walls seemed to hum softly, as if bidding them farewell but also watching over them. When they reached the stairway leading upward, the air felt cooler, carrying the faint sound of Cairo above, the muffled calls of street vendors, the rumble of cars, the ordinary life of a city unaware of the wonders beneath its streets. As they stepped into the narrow passage, Mariam looked back one last time. The chamber glowed with a steady light, eternal and patient. She whispered softly, "We will not fail you." Nabil placed the glowing crystal carefully inside a pouch close to his chest. Together, They climbed upward, their lanterns guiding the way. When they emerged into the hidden chamber beneath the ruins where their journey had begun, the air felt different. The night sky above Cairo stretched wide, stars scattered across its dark canvas. For the first time, Miriam did not see them as distant, unreachable points of light. She saw them as destinations, as paths waiting to be walked. Nabil stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the sky. "One day," he said quietly, "humanity will step among them, and when that day comes, it will remember this place." Miriam smiled faintly, her fear replaced by determination. "And we will be there to guide the way." The city lights flickered below, unaware of the secret beneath its streets. But in that quiet moment, beneath the vast sky, two humans stood ready to carry a burden greater than themselves. They were not warriors or kings, not scholars or rulers. They were ordinary souls chosen to guard an extraordinary truth. The hidden pyramid had returned to silence, but its memory now lived in human hands, and with it the future of humanity stretched beyond the horizon, toward the stars.